Hi, I'm Dan Neer. Last time on part 1 of Yes Up Close, Chris Squire was just about to tell us how his distinct bass sound came about when we cut him off. So here, in the interest of fairness and journalism, is the rest of the story.
We've been working on our second album in Advision Studios with Eddie Offord engineering. The first album he'd engineered with us, and we had this producer, Tony Colton. And it was in those days when it was very hip to listen to things on headphones. Okay, so he had this idea that, when we come to the mix, I'm going to do the whole thing on cans. Now, the way the whole board was set up there, the cans were like kind of like these real kind of things, like that. And so there we are, sitting there, with the stuff like No Experience Necessary and various other things. And he's got the cans on, and he's waving to Eddie Offord, and it's right, more bass, okay. Because there's no bass on these cans at all. And Eddie Offord's kind of going, oh, okay, well, he's the producer. Anyway, what happened is that we ended up with that second album with real loud bass, and people kind of dug it. And then when Eddie Offord actually became the co-producer on the Yes album, which was the following album, he kind of actually sort of like pushed that same motivation of keeping the bass loud. And then by the time we did Roundabout, the bass was always mixed very loud on albums, and that's really how I became famous.
Here's the player, the sound, and the song on part 2 of the Jones Radio Network's Yes Up Close. From Fragile, that was Roundabout, a song that was born in Bonnie, Scotland. John Anderson.
There's a road that you get from Aberdeen in Scotland down to Glasgow, and you go through this amazing pass, and the mountains just come out of the side of you. They go up into the sky, but as we were driving down, the clouds were so low you couldn't see the top of the mountains, so they were just going up, towering higher than these skyscrapers, and you see these mountains coming out of the sky. And I remember writing that down.
Roundabout helped make Fragile an unmitigated hit in 1972. That same year, Yes released their most ambitious album to date, Close to the Edge.
When we first performed Close to the Edge, it was in Crystal Palace here in London, and it's 20 minutes of music, complete. There's no real free-flowing solos. It's all very organized in that sense. It seemed like the song went on all afternoon. It just went on and on. Here was an audience. The album had only just been released. They didn't know the song. They didn't know what it was. And we were halfway through, and I sensed the audience was saying, is it over yet? What is this? This is not what we're used to, sort of feeling. And we finished it, and there was sort of silence out there. There was about 10,000 people. And then there's sort of a, whoa, hey, that was okay. What was that? It was a bloody long time, but, it was a big round of applause, and it went on for a long time.
The title track clocked in at almost 19 minutes. Here's one of the only other 2 songs on the album, And You and I, at a measly 10 minutes and 9 seconds.
And you and I go crossing the shapes of the morning.
and You and I from Close to the Edge. We've got some wondrous stories for you right around the corner on part 2 of Yes, Up Close.
My daughter loves the Backstreet Boys.
My daughter loves the Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys tickets are hard to find, so the boys and Tickets.com teamed up to get you great seats and to raise money for charity. It's only at Tickets.com. Go to www.tickets.com and click on the Backstreet Boys charity ticket auction page.
My daughter loves the Backstreet Boys.
My daughter loves the Backstreet Boys, and she's 30.
Tickets.com is the best source for tickets.
Up Close is back just as drummer Bill Bruford is leaving. Close to the Edge was his last album with Yes.
Well, I was a young guy, I wanted to play with somebody else. I didn't know you were supposed to stay and play with 4 musicians your whole life. I mean, that seemed crazy to me. So I wanted to go and find out how other people made music. There are many different ways to making music. And by putting myself deliberately in some very strange situations, King Crimson was one, playing with Genesis was another, playing with 100 bands you've never heard of and 100 bands you have heard of. That was eventually how I began to figure out what it was that I wanted to do in music.
Bill was replaced by Alan White.
I had it was 3 days actually to learn the whole repertoire, and then I was playing in Dallas, Texas. First gig.
2 albums later, the musical chairs resumed in earnest when keyboardist Rick Wakeman left. He was replaced by Patrick Moraz, who in turn was replaced by Rick Wakeman. Rick returned just in time to lend his chops to 1977's Going for the One.
I woke this morning, love laid me down by
Wondrous stories from Going for the One. Speaking of wondrous, here's a man we haven't heard from yet. Guitarist extraordinaire Steve Howe is equally at home on stage or in the studio.
I tend to think that each time you're doing one of them, that's the one you think you like best. Because they're the 2 main forms of work that I do. I eat into them pretty seriously, whichever one it is. I don't really think, if I look on reflection, that when you've finished a tour you feel any different than when you finished an album. Because if you just finished a long intensive time in the studio, you've tried to give it your all. You've twisted and bent and sort of done as much as you can. The same with the end of a tour. So, but the excitement of a concert is obviously more unique than, say, spending a whole day in a studio. But the dilemma on tour, of course, is that what you did tonight, you'll have to do again tomorrow. And you'll have to be as enthusiastic and as fresh as you were tonight.
The title track from 1977's Going for the One. Yes falters, then finds a new sound and guitarist next on Up Close. Please contact us if you have any questions, suggestions, or comments regarding Up Close. We'd love to hear from you. Our address is upclose@jonesradio.com. We'll be right back. Up Close is brought to you by the U.S. Army. Be all you can be.
There are many good reasons to consider the Army, and now there's one more. Because right now, the Army is offering the biggest...
Part 2 of the Jones Radio Network's Yes Up Close continues now. I'm Dan Neer, and this is John Anderson.
The mid-70s period, we came up against this very sort of business-like brick wall where we were trying to escape the rigidity of making music for radio and realizing that if you don't make music for radio, people won't really come and see you. That was a sort of jolt, because we felt very free around Close to the Edge and Topographic Oceans, and realized a year or 2 later that we were losing contact with the audience because they were so used to maybe easier listening music. So we had to actually break up for a while. Well, I had to leave, and I know that Chris and Alan
felt uncomfortable about being told we've got to make hit singles to survive, and it was a very difficult period until Trevor came along, who was this young, fresh guy who could write songs that were real radio.
Trevor is guitarist Trevor Rabin.
He actually taught us a little bit of a lesson. You can make sort of radio and commercial songs, and at the same time you can be esoteric and try strange ideas and musical variations,
Showing off its changes, that was Yes from 90125. Here's the architect behind the change, Trevor Rabin.
The way the band formed, I wasn't asked to join Yes. Chris had called me and said, "You want to get a band together?" And I was going to sing a song, write a guitar player, and Chris and Alan drums and bass, and we were going to work together. And then we got Tony Kaye involved, and we liked the way it was going. We called the band Cinema, and near the end of recording 90125, Chris saw John somewhere and played him some of the stuff. John loved it and said, "Oh, that sounds great." And Chris said, "Well, come down and have a listen at the studio." And we invited him to sing on a track or two. We thought it sounded great. I thought it was fantastic. I think John's a great singer. And he sounded so good on the songs. I said, let's ask him to join the band, So we did, and that's how it became Yes.
Owner of a Lonely Heart took Yes to #1 for the first time. Chris Squire quotes Honest Abe Lincoln, sort of, next on part 2 of the Jones Radio Network's Up Close.
I wanted to see the world, so I figured the Navy would be the best place to do that.
Went to Sweden,
Korea, Japan,
Iceland, Greenland.
When you're pulling into
E-File's the way to go.
It's that old maxim, isn't it? You can fool the public some of the time, or all of them. So some all, but you can't.
That's Chris Squire of Yes trying to quote Abraham Lincoln. What Abe actually said was, "It is true that you may fool all of the people some of the time. You can even fool some of the people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time." And now, back to Chris Squire's point.
You actually have to keep providing a vital sort of entertainment source with kind of the aspect of genuine sort of like progress, to keep people interested, because there's plenty of other people who are doing that stuff, and if you fall behind, you fall behind.
Along with the new musical direction on 90125 came a new audience. Keyboardist Tony Kaye.
We're playing to 10, 20,000 people that consist of, young kids listening to our music for the first time, and who may be bewildered or amazed or delighted at listening to Heart of the Sunrise and You and I, because it could be confusing to someone who's been listening to Owner of a Lonely Heart and Big Generator. So there's a big mixture, and it's great.
I can feel no sense of measure, no illusions as we take refuge in young mind. One down, one to go, another town on one more show.
From 90125, that was Leave It. Next time on part 3 of Yes Up Close.
When Big Generator was finished, John decided that it wasn't really going musically the direction that he felt. I mean, good as it was and all those sort of things, and as much as he enjoyed working with Trevor and Billy, he just felt that there was other sorts of music that he wanted to explore and do.
Part 2 of Yes Up Close was produced in New York by the Jones Radio Network, a division of Jones International Networks. The producers are David Bales and me, Dan Neer, assisted by Joanne Moorhead. The executive producers are Ron Hartenbaum and Gary Schoenfeld. Up Close is distributed on compact disc and copyrighted 2000, all rights reserved. No portion may be used without the written permission of the producers. The producers would also like to hear any comments you have about this program, so please drop us a line at upclose@jonesradio.com. Join us next time on this station as we present Part 3 of Yes, Up Close. Don't miss it.